but unfortunately, I think we'll skip that part. While I have a good connection, we'll dive right into the content that I have. I'll talk a little bit about my journey into the aviation industry, simply so you guys can understand what was my background before I got in to the aviation industry, and yeah, then talk a little bit more about what's going on in today's aviation industry versus what I think is going to happen in the future, which might make certain employers more attractive to certain people in the future, depending on what your perspective is and profile is and what type of airline you might want to get into. Of course, the aviation industry is huge. I'm going to focus on commercial passenger aviation. There are opportunities in cargo and logistics and things of that nature, but today I'm going to focus primarily on passenger or commercial aviation. And I'll talk a little bit about my experiences at Thunderbird, working with the CMC, and some general career suggestions that I think, lessons learned more than anything, and the kind of things that I wish somebody had told me, or maybe I wish I had listened better when they did tell me some of these things. And then lastly, the most important stuff, we'll go into some of the employers I've worked with and how to look for and maybe get yourself an opportunity with Lufthansa and Emirates in particular. I will fly through the first few bullets there as quickly as possible because I know the good stuff is at the end and we want to get you to that information as quickly as possible. So I wanted to know a little bit more about you guys. I still do. If maybe you could just type in the chat, where people are from, and if you have specific interests in aviation, then I would have a better idea of how to tailor the discussion just a little bit. If you could put that in the chat, that would be great. Unfortunately, I don't want to risk the bandwidth and having everybody introduce themselves, unfortunately. I apologize for that. So, a little bit about me very quickly. I'm from the US originally, from the great state of Iowa, born and raised. Went to undergrad in Iowa, got a marketing degree in sales and advertising. And once I finished my undergrad, I joined the US Air Force. I was an officer in the United States Air Force for 7.5 years. That was my first start into the aviation world. Clearly, the military objectives in aviation are different than commercial aviation, but it was my launch of my career in the aviation industry in general. After those 7 years, in the Air Force, I was stationed in Georgia in the USA. I was in Germany for 3 years, and I was in Spain for 2 years. So learned German, learned Spanish, and also spent time in Bosnia and Kosovo and other parts of the world where the Air Force liked to send people. So when I quit, when I left the military, I went to Thunderbird. I'm the classic T-Bird, I guess. I didn't even apply to any other schools. I knew I wanted to go to Thunderbird for sure. So once I got in, that was what I was going to do with the next step. I did what was then called, I don't know if it's still around, an accelerated MBA. I know the MBA program is not around, but there's an accelerated version that was a 1-year deal. I'd already had 7+ years of work experience, so I wanted to get in and out as quickly as possible. In residence in Glendale, had a wonderful experience, as I'm sure you guys are all having as well. I did focus on entrepreneurship, and then of course I joined big major international companies. I never started my own business or anything like this, but those skills were extremely valuable as part of the major companies that I have worked for since. Directly following Thunderbird, I joined Lufthansa in Germany. I joined basically their management rotational trainee program. I'll go into more detail on that significantly later in the presentation. I spent 1.5 years in that program, and then I was already at the headquarters level in Frankfurt, so I joined basically what is the global sales department following my initial 1.5 year trainee program. And after basically 3 years at the headquarters in Frankfurt, then I moved to Dubai, and I was at the Africa Middle East headquarters for 2 years for Lufthansa, working for Lufthansa, but based in Dubai. And from there, then I transitioned over to Emirates after my couple years of experience in Dubai. Emirates actually sent me to the US. I worked in the New York office, which is kind of the Americas headquarters for Emirates for a couple years. Then I went to Panama for 2.5 years, and now I'm currently in Chile in charge of most of Latin America. So Mexico, Caribbean, Central America, and all of South America except for Brazil and Argentina. So that's my quick background in aviation. I obviously know a lot more about Lufthansa and Emirates, but certainly there are definitely other good employers and other very good airlines out there that might be of interest. I will mention some of those during the presentation as well. So today's aviation industry, of course, there's very few industries that are more global than aviation. If you guys are all trying, getting a global degree at Thunderbird, this is a very attractive industry, I would say. Not only passenger travel, but as I mentioned previously, cargo, logistics, transportation, things of that nature. It's a very robust industry. It's a growing industry, of course, but it has historically, the commercial aviation has historically been dominated by European and US markets, the biggest markets, the most aircraft, the most flights per day, definitely dominated up to this point. It's very dynamic. No 2 days are the same. So, if you're one of those people who likes to come to work and puts out fires on a daily basis and things are, you never know what's going to happen, that could be a good spot for you, this industry. And within what is the aviation industry, and I'll show this, I was hoping to show this a little bit later on the websites of both Lufthansa and Emirates, you can have a very varied career within this industry. So if you're focusing on sales or marketing, finance, I'll just talk briefly about finance, for example. Maybe people wouldn't think of the aviation industry as an option, but of course there's aircraft leasing, there's foreign exchange. Emirates, for example, is a global company. We're receiving all kinds of funds in all kinds of different currencies that need to be traded on an open exchange to get them back into hard currencies or all the way back into dirhams in the UAE. Aircraft leasing, insurance, there's all kinds of things that finance folks are involved in on a daily basis, keeping the aircraft flying. HR, if anybody on the line is interested in HR in particular, our HR folks from headquarters in Dubai go all over the world doing recruiting events, looking for pilots, looking for flight attendants. I know in the next 2 months, the people from Dubai, I looked on the website, they're going to 18 countries. They're going to be in Mexico twice. They're going to be in Colombia. They're going to be in Chile. So quite an interesting opportunity in HR in the aviation industry as well. Then, of course, if somebody might have an engineering background, all of the operations, logistics, all of that type of stuff that goes on the flight line could also be a good opportunity. One thing everybody I want everybody to be aware of, let's say, is the aviation industry is a very low margin industry relative to, let's say, finance or pharma or some of these other places. What I'm trying to get at is it may not be the most lucrative industry to work in. If you're trying to become rich, you might want to look elsewhere, but if you want to have a rich experience, have a chance to travel the world and see different places, of course, it's a great place to be. While I do say there are low margins, we're talking 3, 5, most recently maybe even 7, 8%. The recent years have been very good with the fuel prices being very low. So those recent profits, of course, go back to shareholders, reinvestment in the company, as well as some trickles down to the employees. So there are good years as well. Now the future, and I think this is more important for the folks on the call today that might be starting a career in aviation and might be in aviation for the next 30 or 40 years. Like I said previously, long dominated by the EU and US markets. So definitely good opportunities working for, let's say, the legacy carriers in the US, the American, Delta, United, JetBlue is an excellent carrier, Southwest, of course, all of those, and any legacy carrier in Europe. Lufthansa, British Airways, KLM, Air France, all of them very good places, I'm sure, to work, good airlines. But now the growth, and if I were a young person looking to maybe get into the industry, I would look in some other regions, let's say. So the Middle Eastern carriers in particular, in the last 15 to 20 years have been the big boom. So that means Emirates, Etihad in Abu Dhabi, Qatar Airways based in Doha, and I would even include definitely Turkish Airways out of Istanbul. They've had the big, massive growth. I wouldn't say they hit their peak, but they're reaching that peak. They're kind of turning the corner into being definitely not a legacy carrier. They're still very innovative, still very cutting edge, but they're size-wise, there's not as much for massive growth. Just to give an example, if Emirates in the past has been adding 5 or 6 new destinations per year, the last couple of years it's only been 1, 2, 3 destinations that they're adding. So they're kind of reaching maximum network capacity, let's say. But the current growth and probably the next 15, 20 years is definitely China in particular. As the Chinese middle class continues to grow, more people are now able to fly, whether that's only domestically within China or internationally eventually. That's where the growth is. Airlines in China are desperately looking for pilots. There's a worldwide shortage of pilots. So If you know anybody that's interested in becoming a pilot, there's no better time than try to become a pilot right now on a global basis. And I say Latin America also more from the perspective of low-cost carriers, because in Latin America, in Chile, all over Latin America, Colombia, Chile, wherever, low-cost carriers are really taking hold. It's already been a model that's been in place with Southwest in the US for quite some time. And then you have the Ryanairs and EasyJets and Vuelings and others in Europe that have been around for quite some time now. But this is kind of a shift that's taking place in Latin America. And it's a very good location for this type of shift, because you have a lot of people. The idea is to transition travelers from a domestic bus trip in Chile that might be 20 or 30 hours from north to south onto a relatively cheap flight that takes 5 hours, maybe with a connection in Santiago, and you can go from north to south, and it's very easy. This is good that it gets people off the bus onto airplanes, maybe domestically at first or regionally, but then of course, eventually, from an Emirates perspective, we hope these people are flying long haul, long distances. They get the travel bug and they realize, hey, there's a world beyond the buses, and we'll get out there and see the world. So everybody benefits from the expansion. The pool of travelers gets bigger because of what the low-cost carriers are doing. And lastly, and this is, I would say, the next big step in the industry, is the long-haul low-cost carrier. So the first big one that comes to mind is Norwegian Airlines. They're based, obviously, in Europe. They fly all over Europe, but they are flying many routes long-haul to the USA. They've started. They're getting into South America as well. So this is the next big step. Nobody's really done this profitably. I think several have tried before, but no one's really done this profitably. So some of the carriers people might want to look at are some of these startup carriers in Latin America, the carriers in China or in Asia in general. Might be good opportunities going forward. One good thing I will mention specifically about the Middle East carriers, and not just specifically to Emirates, but Emirates, Qatar, Etihad, whomever, they are accustomed to bringing in lots of people from overseas. So the work authorization is a big deal. In some countries, it's difficult to get that. In Europe, it's difficult to get that authorization, maybe in the US. But in the Middle East, it's relatively easy, let's say. They will do the visa sponsorship and take care of you in that regard. So something that might make that part of the world a little bit more attractive. Based on my experience working with the CMC during my time, I was at Thunderbird from 2007 to 2008 for 12 months, I guess it was. First big thing, of course, was the resume review. I mean, I had what I thought was a pretty good resume, and I took it to the CMC, and it was actually a peer review. It was one of the other students that was there working with the CMC. I remember Joel Montgomery was the guy's name, really bright guy, and he sat down with me and went through it line by line and made a ton of really good suggestions. So even though he was peer, he was, a few years younger than me, he gave me some really good suggestions. So I highly encourage you doing that because it can only improve your resume. Mock interviews, I know some people have already signed up. I have one. I still need to respond to get that set up. I think the gentleman might even be on the call today, so don't worry. I got your email. I will get that set up. I did that a couple times, and I remember the first experience I had at the CMC. It wasn't an online interaction. It was face-to-face, and I was really bad. I was like terrible, really bad. So if you haven't done a lot of interviewing before, I highly suggest doing it simply to improve your skills and get more comfortable doing it. And I did probably 2 or 3, not as many. I know some people did more, but yeah, that first experience was a wake up for me that I knew I had to improve. So definitely go in there, do it at least once, and see what you think of your own personal performance and take the feedback as well. So career fairs, I wanted to touch on this quickly. I understand there's no longer a Thunderbird dedicated career fair, but the advice I want to give is pretty much general because there's all kinds of career fairs to attend. I specifically remember when I arrived on campus in August or September, fall, the CMC was really pushing, hey, everybody needs to go. If you want to find a job, you need to go to Nashimba. And that year it was in Houston. So I bought my Southwest ticket and shared a hotel room with my buddy, and we went, go all dressed up nicely, get in line. And I remember the very first company I wanted to talk to was American Airlines. I get in line, I'm number 10 or 12 in line. I wait, and then I'm the next person in line, and the person in front of me steps up, and I can hear the first question. And the first question is, so why American Airlines? Why do you want to join American Airlines? And I heard that question, and I'm thinking to myself, oh man, I don't even have an answer to the very first question. So I got out of line, I hadn't prepared. I hadn't done anything in advance. So I got out of line, didn't know what to do, stood around, and eventually I just left. So I went to Houston for 2 days, did absolutely nothing, total waste of my time and money. So my lesson learned for all of you, if you're gonna go, pick out the 4 or 5 companies that you're super interested in, take the time. I know everybody's busy studying everything. That was my excuse too, but it's really not worth it unless you put in the time before attending. Not only will you not get a job if you're not really prepared, but it probably makes Thunderbird look a little bit bad as well. So that's why I got out of line. Instead of embarrassing myself in Thunderbird, I said, oh, I'll skip this. Language skills. I understand Thunderbird no longer requires language skills, which is totally fine, or has gotten away from, yeah.
Yeah, starting next year, language skill it's part of the program now. It's required.
Okay, excellent. Okay, then I was either misinformed or that's coming back, so that's good news. I can only say from my personal experience, when I got the job with Lufthansa leaving Thunderbird, I only got it, or one of the main reasons I got it was because I spoke at least a little bit of German. Having lived in Germany before, I had a little bit of skills. Then to transition my last job with Emirates, when I moved from New York to Panama, being able to speak Spanish was a vital piece of getting that job as well. In neither case was it a must-have, but it was definitely gave me an advantage over other candidates in both cases. So if you have language skills, fantastic. If you have average language skills, continue to improve as much as you can. It will definitely pay off, actually, in the end. And then one thing that I've learned, excuse me, the starting salary, of course, everybody wants to maximize the starting salary. Everybody wants the big number to start. But it's not only about that it's the first starting salary that you get. My experience has been once you get promoted internally, you do a good job for the first couple of years and you get promoted internally, at least the companies I've worked at, they take your current salary and increase that by 10% or 15% or whatever. It's not like you're going to get a huge step raise. You might, in other companies you might, so that'd be fantastic. But just be aware that that first salary is vitally important, because if you're going to start at $70,000 and your next raise is only going to be 10%, that's not going to incrementally climb super fast. So push hard for that first salary, of course, and know that that might be impacting you for some time to come. The good news is, and my experience is, if you change companies at some point, that's when you really have an opportunity to push for a higher salary going forward. So it's unfortunate that some people maybe have to leave a company they like and enjoy to try to increase the compensation a bit, but that is a good way to go about it. So diving into the real business that we came for today. I'll start with Lufthansa, because that's how my transition was from Thunderbird into the Lufthansa Group. And I just want to clarify that Lufthansa Group means Lufthansa, of course, is this major international carrier, largest airline group in Europe, but that includes Lufthansa, Swiss is also part of the family, Austrian, Brussels Airlines, Eurowings is their low-cost carrier, Air Dolomiti is a regional carrier in northern Italy. It's a massive group. And I'm not talking about Lufthansa Cargo or any other part of these operations. So there are many opportunities, not only in Germany, not only with Lufthansa, but as a larger airline group here. These all under the same umbrella. Unfortunately, I'm not going to try to open this video. It's just a brief overview, and it's at the Lufthansa career site, which I will show in a second anyway. It's on their landing page. It just gives you like a 1-minute overview of the different types of jobs you can find within Lufthansa, which, if somebody has only flown as a passenger, they might not realize all of the different types of jobs that are behind the scenes as well. So that little short video might give you an idea of some of the other opportunities besides pilots and flight attendants and check-in agent and things like this. So this is the Lufthansa Careers site in English. I'm going to attempt it. Let's see if we can open it, because I really wanted to walk you guys through the site, because it's actually really good. I haven't been on the site for a while until I was preparing for this, and it's really excellent. So I hope this actually opens up. And okay, slowly but surely, I think we're going to get there. Okay, well, while that's opening, I'm going to go back to the presentation and I'll talk about my experience first, and then we'll go back to the website and see what happens. So what I joined Lufthansa, the program was called Pro Team. At the time, Lufthansa was recruiting at 2 universities in the States. They came to Thunderbird and they went to MIT also, was what they had chosen as their 2 locations in the US. They did interviews with quite a few people on campus, and then they invited several of us to basically an assessment center in Frankfurt over like Thanksgiving time frame. There was 4 of us that went together. We went through the whole process, the usual like role play, knowledge, general knowledge tests, kind of IQ tests, things of that nature, and of course a couple rounds of interviews as well. A very long day, of course, but it was just a 1-day deal in Frankfurt. It was a good experience. The program itself was 18 months, a general management program, doing projects in different departments. I'll just very briefly go over my experience so you understand what some of the opportunities are. The idea for Lufthansa is that people in this program, they hire about 15 people per year, get a broad overview of the entire company. So you don't focus only on passenger travel or cargo business or maintenance. You go to all of these places and learn a little bit about the entire company, with the intention that you're going to have a nice long career with Lufthansa and that you understand about the entire company. So the first place I went to was the product management and innovation department. And that was basically working on the new business class cabin interior. So the seats, the look, the feel, the whole thing. So it was like the cool hip innovation lab and all of these graphic design type people and really pretty interesting stuff. So what I did was we built a mock-up of what the new cabin interior would be, and we invited the top customers from Lufthansa to come in, people who fly an awful lot and spend a lot of time on Lufthansa airplanes, to test out the new seat and the new look and feel and get their feedback. So that was like a 4 or 5 month project, very interesting. And of course, eventually that product was flying for Lufthansa. It is flying today, actually. Then I went to the Star Alliance headquarters, which is also in Frankfurt. This was another 3-month project or so, basically working with new carriers that are joining the Star Alliance. Lufthansa was one of the founding members of Star Alliance. And I basically did a process map for all of the steps that people need to do to join the Alliance. Quite a detail-oriented project, but quite interesting as well, working with Air India and a couple other carriers that were joining at the time. From there, I did a 5-month project with Lufthansa Cargo in Mexico City, primarily focused on pricing and competitor price analysis, trying to determine where there might be an opportunity for Lufthansa to increase prices or where Lufthansa needed to decrease prices depending on the type of item that was being shipped. So a wonderful experience in Mexico City. And lastly, I was part of the Lufthansa consulting team that launched the new airline at the time, the new airline in Cameroon. It was the flag carrier of Cameroon. So I went to Yaoundé and spent a couple of weeks in Yaoundé on the ground in Cameroon, And then the remaining 4 months or so on the project was back in Frankfurt at the Lufthansa consulting office. So everything from start to finish on how to launch a new airline, which aircraft type to select, which type of uniform, what color of the uniforms, what does the aircraft look like, the livery, the outside of the aircraft, all of that. We did the huge project with the Cameroonian government to get the airline back launched. Like I said, the hiring process for me was via the Thunderbird Career Fair at the time. If I can get back to the website, then we'll show you what kind of opportunities there are. There are lots of opportunities as far as internships posted on the website, so I hope I can get up and take a look. So let's see where the website is at this point. Okay, this is a little bit different layout. I think it didn't load quite properly or quite the same as I'm used to seeing because of the slow internet, but that's okay, we'll work with it. Here it's very simple, it's very user-friendly. This is the overall landing page. I'm a student in this case. And then from there you can pick what you're interested in. And let's say somebody's interested in an internship. And I'm looking at the entire Lufthansa group here. You could pick from specific companies within the Lufthansa group. If you wanted to focus on Lufthansa Cargo only or Lufthansa Consulting, you can do that. Normally the page loads very quickly, but unfortunately it's not loading so quickly to see the different options under company. So I'll skip that at the moment. But what I wanted to show you, what I think is really nice about this, so I've only selected student and internship, and I can already see here that there's this many opportunities for students looking for an internship around the world with Emirates and with Lufthansa, and it shows you specifically where in the world those opportunities are. So if I scroll out a bit, you can see there are opportunities in the US, some in Asia as well, but quite a few opportunities. I was looking earlier, they keep adding more and more because there was 2 listed in New York City today, and they've already moved down on the list. So if you press here and get more, I won't do it because I don't want the whole page to have to load again. You'll see all kinds of opportunities that are available. Hello? Mackenzie, I can see you well. Can you just give me a nod that you can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, very good. So like I was saying, here the website gives you all the locations, lots of internships available, and of course, lots of full-time positions. So I'm going to take out the internship filter, and hopefully the screen should jump back to some opportunities I wanted to point out in particular. So Lufthansa Group trainee programs. I would say these are the types of programs, somebody finishing a master's degree would want to focus on. I already discussed ProTeam a little bit, and I'll go to that website in particular. ProTeam is for the general management training, let's say, so you get the full overview of the entire company. But if somebody is particularly interested in cargo, it's basically the same program, but it's only focused in the cargo arena. So if you know that's your thing, then that would be a good opportunity. Lufthansa Technik is basically the maintenance piece. Lufthansa does maintenance for almost every airline around the world. So they do maintenance all over the world. So if you're an engineer or something and you're more geared towards that more inclined towards that line of work, that could be a good program. And then LSG Sky Chefs is basically the catering company of Lufthansa, and they also serve food for airlines all over the world, not just airlines flying in and out of Germany. They're everywhere. They're here in Chile. They're everywhere. So, you know, a good, interesting potential company to work for within the Lufthansa group as well. So going specifically to protein, it's quite a nice page, so it might take some time to load, unfortunately. But it's basically step by step, the application process, what your experience will be in the program. The application process is considerably different than what it was when I was in applying, but that's okay. It now requires a video and things like this, but you guys are all, yeah, millennials, Instagram users and all that stuff, so uploading a cool video and stuff like that is probably second nature for you guys at this point. If it doesn't load, you know, there's the address. You can go and check it out yourselves slowly but surely. And sorry, it's this page that's Discover Protein that really goes into detail as far as what the opportunities are as part of this program. Like I said, 15 people roughly that they bring in per year. It's not necessary to speak German. When I joined, they basically gave us a month of German language classes because myself and the other gentleman that joined from Thunderbird also had some prior background in German, so it was more of a refresher course for us, but they would also do a full-up German course if you're interested in an intensive language course. So you can go watch any of these videos, learn more about the program. Generation 31 is the current group. I was Generation 24, so yeah, this is far more high speed than when I was in. I just wanted to scroll down to the application portion quickly. It talks about the videos and all of the online testing and things you have to do. Pretty standard things to get through the process. So that's the whole protein side and primarily Lufthansa. If there are any questions, let me know. Let's probably try to do questions at the end just so we can get through the content before we might fall off here again. So let's go back to the presentation. I'm going to skip the video just because I know it won't work. It was supposed to be a nice, sexy, interesting video to transition to Emirates, but yeah, maybe some other time, unfortunately. So now transition and talk about Emirates, and also I won't go into detail about Fly Dubai, but if anybody's particularly interested in living in Dubai for whatever reason, I mean, it's a very international, cosmopolitan place, and like I said, obtaining work authorization in the UAE in particular is relatively easy compared to other countries. So Fly Dubai isn't owned by Emirates, but it's the low-cost carrier of Dubai, and Emirates and Fly Dubai work together very closely. Code share agreements and things of that nature. So there you have the Emirates Group Careers.com is where all the jobs are that are related to Emirates. That's everything from pilots to flight attendants to engineers to check-in counters. Everything is at one site, of course. And I'm going to go to this particular page. It's the same page, but it's focused more on the business-related type opportunities that are available at Emirates. So again, let's see how long this will take to load. While it's loading, I'll just talk briefly about my experience at Emirates. Like I said, I started with Emirates in New York, there for 2 years, basically in a sales capacity, working with large clients across the country. And then I moved to Panama, where I was sent to Panama to set up the operation in Panama. Was there for 2 years, basically running Central America. Anything touching the Caribbean was kind of my area. And then they sent me to Chile about a year ago to set up the operation for Chile as well. So been bouncing around a little bit. And while I said I studied entrepreneurship at Thunderbird, I didn't really start a business, but when you come down here and start and launch a new route, it's got a lot of similar entrepreneurial spirit to it, I guess. So I've enjoyed being something of an entrepreneur inside of a large company without the risk of being an entrepreneur, you could say. while this is loading, I'll also make a plug for Emirates and Dubai in particular very quickly. Well, there it comes. So I'll do that plug in a second. So this is the corporate and commercial side. So I want to walk you through this portion of the page simply because it's more geared towards the business student. Of course, there's a brief overview of the pay and benefits and things you can expect. Generally, Emirates will give you a housing allowance and take care of all these things are pretty standard. So it's a really nice way to transition to a new environment, having a lot of that taken care of prior to arrival. So starting with finance, accounting, audits, all those types of positions are definitely available within a large Mackenzie, can you give me the nod again? Are we back? Good, thank you. Sorry. Yeah, so finance, as I mentioned earlier, you know, aircraft leasing, insurance, all kinds of things are involved in a major operation on the finance side if somebody's interested in that side. Commercial is more where I am on the sales side. And just click over to the next view here so you have a better idea. This includes kind of all the online sales, Emirates.com, of course, international affairs, all of these types of things that could be very relevant to T-Birds. Those types of positions are available within an airline and quite attractive at Emirates in particular. If we have marketing folks in the room, Emirates is one of the top brands globally, not just in the airline, but globally, and when it comes to marketing and in particular sponsorships. Emirates is very well known for sponsoring Real Madrid, Arsenal, AC Milan, all these teams across, soccer teams across Europe, the Ryder Cup golf tournament, ATP men's tennis tour, all these things you see fly Emirates everywhere. So, you know, a pretty fun, exciting team to work on at Emirates, no question, the sponsorships team. And of course, all kinds of normal branding that you would do, the commercials and things of this nature that any major organization would do. They do work with agencies, of course, but there's a massive corporate communications marketing team based in Dubai that would be a really fun team to work for, I think. IT, I'm not going to spend too much time on. Medical service, also a little bit specialist. HR, again, quite a lot of opportunities and pretty exciting, interesting ones. The recruitment side, of course, but then, of course, you have the compensation and benefits and all those other parts of HR that are super relevant and all the big companies need. But again, if you're looking to travel, you guys all look quite young. So if you're looking to get out and see the world, this would be a great opportunity to do these recruiting events around the world. Could be a pretty fun job to do, I would say. Safety, security, nothing's more important for all airlines around the world than safety. So everybody takes those very seriously. Again, an engineering background would be very helpful for the flight safety portion of it. And then procurement and logistics. This was actually my background when I was in the Air Force. I did procurement for 7 years. So purchasing, obviously Emirates is a global company. They're all over the world. They have to buy materials and things to supply the operations all over the world. So a very global role as well. And legal, if anybody happens to have a law background, there's definitely a large team of lawyers doing international law as well as part of the Emirates group. And then the application process is pretty straightforward. You have to fill out a profile online and apply for the specific job that you're interested in. The good thing is, of course, once you applied for one job, it's easier the second time around or the third time around because your profile is already built in the system. So it does make that a little bit more convenient. I'm now just going to jump back very quickly to the main landing page. That portion was focused on the corporate/commercial side, but I'm going to go back very quickly to the overall Emirates Group career site simply because I wanted to point out the opportunities, as I mentioned earlier, for pilots, no question. Obviously, that takes some pretty significant training and background. But you see here all of the different opportunities in engineering, customer services, whatever the case may be. But I will make one quick plug for cabin crew. Again, if I was a young person and maybe you've just finished your studies and you wanted to get out and see the world, this would be an excellent way to spend 2 or 3 years before you dive into maybe the corporate world. This would be a really nice way to get out and live in Dubai, work with people from all over the world, and have quite an experience. So just to give you an idea, scrolling here, I don't know how many countries there are, a lot. This is where they're going to be recruiting within the next 2.5 or 3 months all over the world. So that gives you an idea of what types of people you'll be working with, a super international environment, a lot of fun, see the world for 2 or 3 years, and then maybe jump into a more corporate role if that's what you had in mind. But just want to throw it out there. I mean, there's no education specific requirement, but I will say in talking to our flight attendants, they're all well-educated, university degrees and all that kind of stuff. So could be an interesting opportunity. That's more or less, let me just jump back to the presentation. Sorry, let me hit that last piece. Another very good resource, somebody else you guys might want to reach out to is Shazhu Liu. He graduated in 2013. He was working for Emirates for about 5 years. He just left Emirates less than a month ago. So he's moving to Abu Dhabi. He's got a different job in Abu Dhabi, but what he worked on was basically the website, the Chinese website. He started doing Chinese content for the Emirates.com website. And then he moved over to digital analytics, and quite an interesting short 5 years he had at Emirates. He had several different roles and had a good experience. He also did an internship with Lufthansa, so he has that expertise as to how he acquired that Lufthansa internship and then eventually turned that into a full-time position at Emirates down the road. Again, another interesting video that I'm unfortunately gonna skip this time, but that's the way it is. So if you guys have questions, I'm pretty sure I'll be able to hear you fine. Otherwise, if you want to type them into the chat box, I'd be happy to field questions for a while.
Okay, guys, if you guys can just unmute yourself and then ask your question, and then make sure to mute yourself again, just so we don't have a lot of competing background noise, okay?
Hi, Scott. My name is Rosa.
Hello.
I had a question for the internships. If you do an internship overseas, I have a family. So is that an 18-month alone or 18-month with family?
So the program in Germany, the 18-month, that was definitely with family. I mean, they paid to move me all the way from Arizona, from Thunderbird to Frankfurt. I didn't have a family. I had my wife with me. We didn't have children or anything, but she was a Spanish citizen, or is a Spanish citizen. So that whole visa and things was a little bit easier. But Lufthansa did take care of the whole visa process if you don't have EU work authorization. So yeah, you could go with the whole family, no problem.
Okay. Yeah, I'm actually, I did 7.5 years Army.
The protein thing is not an internship. It is a full-time, fully paid, full salary position. So it's a good way to start the career. So yeah, that would be, I caught the end there. You were in the Army. Does that mean you had time in Germany as well? You might have been.
I'm sorry, say again?
Did you have time in Germany as well as part of your?
No, most of my time, I did some in Korea, and then I was in Iraq for a little while.
Very good. Okay. Yeah, no, definitely a full-time job, and they would have moved the whole family if that were the case, the scenario for the individual person.
Okay.
Yeah. And Emirates does the same. Sorry, just to piggyback off of that, if you get a job with Emirates, they move the whole family. They have a education allowance for the children as well as part of the compensation package. So those are all good opportunities in Dubai with Emirates as well.
Okay, thank you.
For private school education and things of that nature. Yeah.
Hi, Scott. This is Clayton. I would think we have our mock interview next week, so looking forward to that.
Yes, I got you.
I'm very interested in.
Thank you.
I'm very interested in Latin America. Could you tell us more about the projects that you have going on right now in Chile?
Yeah, so Emirates started flying to Chile in July of last year, so not even 1 year operating to Santiago. Currently, Emirates flies to Sao Paulo, Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, and Buenos Aires, as well as Santiago. So those are the 4 destinations in Latin America, but they're always investigating the possibility to fly to new destinations. So Bogota is on the radar, Mexico City is on the radar, you name it, Lima, Quito, all of them are being evaluated. Some are more higher priority than others, but yeah, there will definitely be opportunities for expansion for Emirates. I didn't put up the route map of Emirates, but you can see they fly all over the world, covering 12 destinations in the US, all over Europe, all over Asia, a large portion of Africa. But what's really missing on the route map still is South America, Central America. So there will be opportunities in the future with Emirates in that part of the world, definitely. Let me just caveat that if you're finishing school and there's not a specific opportunity in Latin America at that time, you could still consider Emirates as an employer in Dubai, get your feet wet, get inside the company, and it's much easier to get transferred to a position maybe in Latin America once you're already inside the company, as was the case for me. I was already working in New York. An opportunity came up in Panama. I went to my boss and said, hey, I'm very interested. He fully supported me, and off I went. So wouldn't necessarily say, if you're interested in aviation, I wouldn't necessarily say wait until there's a specific opportunity in Latin America. Get in with the company that's got potential and then maybe get that transfer down the road. Of course, if you can find another airline that has an opening immediately for you, fantastic. There's lots of opportunities. I've noticed in your resume, you have lots of Colombia experience. There are many airlines in and out of Colombia, so I'm sure you can find good opportunities there. Again, low-cost carriers as well, with big presence in Colombia.
Thank you.
Hi, Scott. Hello?
Yeah, hello, I hear you. Now I got the image. Larry, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you for taking the time to talk to us today. My question is there anything you don't like about working with Emirates? And is there anything you would change if you could?
Very good question. What I don't like about working at Emirates, man, I wish I had a specific, really good example that this gets on my nerves every day. But no, I must say working for Emirates has been great. Working for Lufthansa was also great. I really had very positive experiences. So I don't have, sorry, I wish I had something for you in that regard. Changes, well, there's always things you would like to change, but I guess I'd rather keep those in-house for conversations with my boss on things that I would want to change. But I'd have to say a very strong, very good employer. If you guys are looking for, the honest feedback assessments, of course, there are many websites that talk about these employers that you might find a little bit more positive and negative experiences that people have had. But my experience has been, frankly, nothing but positive. I've been supported anytime I wanted to try to do something. I've had 3 different jobs in 5 years at Emirates. So when I wanted to move, I wanted to try something new, I had the support from my bosses. So yeah, sorry, Larry, I don't mean to disappoint you, but I don't have
It's okay. Thank you.
real complaints, but good question. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, thank you.